Question 1. The height of a building is 310 meters, correct to the nearest meter. Complete the error interval, or in this case, write an error interval for the height of the building. So we've got 310 meters. 1 meter up, 311. 1 meter down is 309. So to round to 310, it must be between these two midpoints. So halfway between 309 and 310 is 309.5. Halfway between 310 and 311, 310.5. So the height must be bigger than or equal to 309.5, but less than 310.5. Because if it was exactly 309.5, we would round it to 310. But if it was 310.5, we would actually round it to 311. So it's less than 310.5, but it can equal 309.5. Question 2. Work out 3.12 times 10 to the power of negative 6 divided by 2.5 times 10 to the negative 4. Give your answer in standard form. We've got a calculator and we can just type this in. So we can either type it in how it looks and write using the brackets or the fraction button. 3.12 times 10 to the power of negative 6, like so. Or we could use the standard form button, 3.12, and then it's times 10 to the power of negative 6. The benefit of using this button is we don't have to worry about the brackets or the fraction button. We can still use a divide because it counts it as one number. 2.5 times 10 to the power of negative 4. So I've got 39 over 3,125, or 0.01248. So we get 0.01248. So however you type it in, you should get this answer. If you don't, you're typing it in incorrectly. What you can't do is just leave out the brackets. You can't write 3.12 times 10 to the power of negative 6 divided by 2.5 and so on, because it will do these calculations from left to right. It won't count 3.12 times 10 to the power of negative 6 as one number. It will just do 3.12. It will times it by 10 to the power of negative 6, then divide that by 2.5, and then times that answer. That isn't what we want. So if you're going to type it in how it looks, you have to use the brackets. Back to this, we need to give our answer in standard form. Standard form is a number between 1 and 10. So we're going to write 1.248, and then times 10 to a power. To go from 1.248 to our answer, we need to divide by 10 two times. So the power is negative 2. And we can check our answer. If I type in 1.248 times 10 to the power of negative 2, it takes me back to 0.01248. 3 buses, bus A, bus B, and bus C all use the same bus stop. Bus A runs every 10 minutes, bus B runs every 12 minutes, bus C runs every 14 minutes. All 3 buses are at the bus stop at 11 AM. What time will all 3 buses next be at the bus stop? So we want the lowest common multiple of 10, 12, and 14. We could write out all the buses, all the times, but it is quite a long time. It will be quite a long time until all 3 of them are the same. So there is a quicker method. So if we write them as a product of their prime factors, so 10 is 2 times 5. 12 is 2 times 6, which is 2 times 3. So 2 times 2 times 3. And 14 is 2 times 7. So if we have a circle for 10, a circle for 12, and a circle for 14, they've all got a 2 in them. So 2 goes in the middle of all 3. And then 10 has just got another 5. B, the 12 has got another 2 and a 3, and C has got a 7. So the lowest common multiple of all three of them are all of these numbers multiplied together. So 2 times 2 times 3 times 5 times 7. That's the lowest common multiple, timesing all the numbers together. If we wanted the highest common factor, it would be the ones in common, which is 2. So the lowest common multiple is all of them times together. And if we do 2 times 2 times 3 times 5 times 7, we will get 420. So the lowest common multiple is 420. What time will that be? So 420 minutes, that is. Divide by 60, 7 hours. Divide by 60 equals 7. So it's 7 hours later, 11 a.m., 7 hours later, 6 p.m. Question 4. The table gives information about the times taken in seconds by 20 students to run a race. Work out an estimate for the mean time. So we know the frequencies add up to 20. We want to estimate the mean. So we know there's 2 between 20 and 25. We don't know their exact times. So what we do is we use the midpoint. We use the midpoint as our guess for both of their times. The same for these 10 students. We're going to say they're 27.5. We're going to say these 5 students were 32.5 seconds. And these 3 with a midpoint, which is 40. So we do midpoint times frequency for all of them. So 22.5 times 2 is 45. 27.5 times 10 is 275. 32.5 times 5 is 162.5. And 3 times 40 is 120. So we'll add all of those up. And we get 602.5. So that's the total of all their times. We're saying all of their times, our estimate for all of their times added together is 602.5. There are 20 students. So the mean is 602.5 divided by 20. And we get 30.125. So 30.125 seconds is our estimate for the mean. Question 5. ABCD is a trapezium. AB is parallel to DC. Find the size of angle BCD. So we want this angle here. We have a trapezium, we have parallel lines. So when we've got 2 parallel lines, if you walked along this line, walked along this straight line, and then walked back along here, you would have turned around 180 degrees. These are called co-interior angles. So co-interior angles always add to 180 degrees. So we know that 2x plus 19 plus 3x minus 6 must equal 180. So we can use that to find out what x is, and that will mean we can find the missing angle. So 2x plus 3x is 5x. 19 take away 6 is 13. Take 13 away from both sides. Remember, we can use a calculator. So you can go 180 take away 13, 167. And then divide both sides by 5. And we find our x is 33.4. So we know x is 33.4. That means we can find all of these angles if we want to now. But I'm just going to find this angle here. So 4 times 33.4, take away 57. Which is 76.6. So this angle is 76.6. And again, we have co-interior angles. They add up to 180. So our angle that we want to work out, BCD, is going to be 180 take away 76.6. And that is 103.4. If you did work out all the angles and do 360, take away all of them, that would also be fine. It would be longer, but it would be okay. Question 6. Complete the table of values for y equals 7 plus 2x minus x squared. So we're just substituting in the x's into the equation. So we'll have 7 plus 2x minus x squared. So let's put in, I'm going to start on the right. So substituting 4, we get -1. Substituting 3. So where I put brackets around the number I'm substituting in, I can just change a number inside the brackets every time. So I've got 4. Then I've got a 2. So that gives me 7. And 1 gives 8. And when we have these quadratic graphs, we get a symmetrical pattern. So this time we've got 7, and then it's gonna repeat. It's gonna be 4 and -1. You can put in the numbers just to check. Let's put in -2, -1. So you can see it's the same on both sides. It's because the quadratic graphs make a symmetrical shape. So then we can just draw the graph. So -2, -1, -1, 4, 0, 7, 1, 8, 2, 7, 3, 4, and 4, -1. And we'll join them up. It's a curve, so we can't use a ruler. We have to draw it freehand. Something like that. And then it says, use your graph to find estimates of the solutions of the equation 7 plus 2x minus x squared equals 0. So where it equals 0, that's where it crosses the x-axis, where y is equal to 0. You see, the graph was y equals 7 plus 2x minus x squared. Here we haven't got y equals, we've got 0 equals. So it's where y equals 0. It's where it crosses the x-axis. That's here, and it's here. So we've got -1.8 and 3.8. So they're sometimes called the roots. And you might also be asked about the turning point, which is where it turns. So at 1,8 on this graph. Question 7. Josh drove 39 miles from Luton to Cambridge. He then drove 63 miles from Cambridge to Norwich. Josh's average speed from Luton to Cambridge was 32 miles per hour. Josh took 80 minutes to drive from Cambridge to Norwich. Work out Josh's average speed for his total drive from Luton to Norwich. So we've got speed, distance, and time. So speed is equal to distance divided by time. The average speed which is what we want to work out, is going to be the total distance divided by the total time. So we need to know the total distance and the total time. We actually know the total distance. It's 39 plus 63, which we can write as 102. So then we need to just know the times. So there's two parts, Luton to Cambridge. We know the speed and the distance, so we don't know the time. We can rearrange this formula to get the time. So if we times by time, speed times time is distance, and then divide by speed, time is distance over speed. So the time is equal to the distance, 39, divided by the speed, 32 miles per hour. 39 over 32 is 1.21875. So that's the time. We also have, so that's in hours. We'll keep it like that. We don't want to change it to minutes. If we did, we could press this time button here. 1 hour, 13 minutes. It's not an exact number, but we don't really want it in minutes. It's better in hours. From the other part of the journey is Cambridge to Norwich. We already know it's 80 minutes. I can change that into hours by dividing by 60. So I'm going to store this number. I'm pressing store and then A. So I'm storing my first time. And I'm going to do 80 over 60. It's 4/3 or 1.3 recurring hours. So the total time is 1.21875 plus 1.3 recurring. I'm using the whole numbers, so it's this answer plus the one I just saved as A, and I get 2.552 and so on. So that's my total time. I know my total distance, so I just need to do distance over time. So speed is 102 over 2.552. That's still in the calculator. So I'm going to do 102 divided by my answer. And this is the average speed. And it hasn't told us to give it to a certain number of decimal places. So we can write 39.97, or we could write the whole number, or we could write 40.0. Any of those are fine. 39.97. 39.97 miles per hour. Question 8. Millie invests £2,000 in a savings account for 4 years. She gets 3.9% per year compound interest. Work out how much money Millie will have in her savings account at the end of 4 years. Give your answer correct to the nearest pound. So we're adding on 3.9% every year. So at the end of each year, we're going to have what we started with, 100% plus 3.9%. So we want 103.9%. And to get 103.9%, we can multiply by it, but it's better to do it as a decimal. So 103.9% as a decimal is 1.039. So this calculation, 2,000 times 1.039, will add on 3.9%. And we want to do that 4 times. So times 1.039 times 1.039 again, and again, and again. So we can just write the power of 4. So 2,000 times 1.039 to the power of 4. We'll find out how much money is in the account at the end of 4 years. And that is 2,331 pounds. Correct to the nearest pound. Question 9. Work out the sides of angle BAC. So B to A to C. Give your answer to 3 significant figures. So we've got a right angle triangle. So this is a SOHCAHTOA question. So we have the opposite, that's 7.5, opposite the angle, and the adjacent in between the angle and the right angle. We're not using the hypotenuse, we're using O and A. So it's TOA, it's tan. So tan with the angle, tan theta, is opposite divided by adjacent, 7.5 divided by 12.1. To get the angle by itself, to get tan away from theta, we do shift tan, arctan. So the answer, the angle, is going to be shift tan or arctan, 7.5 over 12.1. Shift tan, 7.5 over 12.1. And that is 31.8 degrees. Question 10. ADB, so we've got a triangle ABC, and ADB is a straight line. The sides of angle BCD to ACD, so these two here, is in the ratio 2 to 3. Work out the sides of an angle A to D to C. We're working out this one here. So we've got the big triangle. Angles in a triangle add up to 180. So let's do 180, take away the two angles we know. That's 45. So these two angles here add up to 45. We've got to share them in the ratio 2 to 3. So 2 parts to 3 parts. So there's 5 parts in total. Divide by 5. That's 9. So each one's 9. So we've got 18 and 27. So the 2 parts was BCD. That's 18. And ACD is 27. So now we've got angles in a triangle again with the triangle here. Angles in a triangle add up to 180 degrees. So 180 take away 52, take away 27. And it's 101. A company has 9 employees available to complete a job. It is known that 7 employees can complete the job in 12 days. Davina says the 9 employees will be able to complete the job in less than 10 days. Is Davina correct? You must show your working. So this is an inverse proportion question. So the more people working, the less time it will take. So if we do 7 times 12, 7 employees can do the job in 12 days. So 7 times 12 is 84. So there's 84 days of work to be done. It would take 1 employee 84 days to do this job. And if we had a formula, if it was y equals k over x, our k would be 84. So we could change this into a formula, y equals 84 over x, if we wanted to. So there's 84 days of work to be done. We have 9 employees. So let's share out that work between the 9 employees. and it will take 9.3 recurring days, 9 1/3 days. So is it less than 10 days? Yes. It will take 9.9 1/3 days. Question 12. The box plots show the time it took Year 7 and Year 11 students to travel to school on one day. So we've got two box plots drawn for us. In a box plot, we have the lowest, the shortest amount of time, the lower quartile, the median, the upper quartile, and the highest, longest amount of time. We need to compare the times it took the Year 7 and Year 11 students. So whenever we compare, we're asked to compare the data, we're going to compare two things. We're going to compare the average, which is the median, and we're going to compare the spread, which can either be the interquartile range or the range. So we're comparing the average time and how spread out the times are. So let's just write a sentence for each. Try and use the context. So this is the time taken to travel to school. So the Year 7s, on average, the median time was less. So the median, so I'm using the context, time taken for Year 7 students was lower, was less. So the median time was lower, that's the average. Now let's do the spread. So the interquartile range or the range, and they're both bigger for the Year 11 students. So both the interquartile range, which is this distance here between the upper quartile and the lower quartile, or the range, they're both bigger for the Year 11 students. So the interquartile range was bigger for the Year 11 students. That's not in context, so I'll just say the times were more spread out, just to make sure we're talking in context of the question. Question 13. In a restaurant, there are 7 starters, 9 mains, 6 desserts on the menu. Work out the total number of ways of choosing a starter, a main, and a dessert. So there are 7 different ways of picking the starters. For each of those 7 starters, there are 9 different mains we could pick. And for each of those options, there are 6 desserts we can pick. So it is just 7 times 9 times 6. And that is 378. Question 14. A, B, C, and D are points on the circumference of a circle centre O. Angle ADC is 118. Angle AOC is X. We need to work out the value of X. You must show all your working. So we've got circle theorems. In a circle, when we've got a quadrilateral, a cyclic quadrilateral, which is where all 4 points, all 4 corners of the quadrilateral are on the circumference of the circle, the opposite angles add up to 180 degrees. So 180 take away 118 will be 62 degrees, because the opposite angles in a cyclic quadrilateral. And when we have 2 points, so one angle at the center and an angle at the circumference in the same segment, so the angle at the center is always twice the angle at the circumference. So angle at center is double the angle at circumference. So we just need to double the 62. 62 times 2 is 124 degrees. The cumulative frequency graph gives information about the time in seconds each of 60 people took to complete a puzzle. Use the graph to complete the frequency table. So we're going from the cumulative frequency back to the frequency table. So let's read off the graph. So we want 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120. At 20 seconds, there have been 6 people. So anything up to 20 is 6. So it's 6. I'm going to write cumulative frequency along the side, just so it's clear what we're doing here. Everything up to 40, so when we've got cumulative frequency, it's anything up to that amount. I think that's 16. So at 40, we've got 16. So the cumulative frequency is 16. So everything up to 40 is 16. We already had 6, so we need 10 more. Everything up to 60 is 38. So everything up to 60 is 38. We already had 10, so we need 28 more. Everything up to 80 is 50. So that's the difference of 12 this time. Everything up to 100 is 57. So that's 7 more. And everything up to 120 is 60. So that's 3 more. So when we have a cumulative frequency, we are adding up as we go along. So the cumulative frequency is everything up to that point. If we're given a cumulative frequency question in the exam, usually it's going the other way. So usually we start with the frequency table, and then we have to complete the cumulative frequency. So we add up as we go, we get the cumulative frequency, add it up as we go, and then we plot on the top point against the cumulative frequency. So 80 against 50, 100, 57, 120, 60. If we're asked a question about it, we will usually be asked for the median. So if there's 60 people, the median is the 30th. So we go along to 30 and down and read off. This looks like 51. So the median time would be 51 seconds. Question 16. Here are 9 cards. Each card has a number on it. Emma takes 2 cards at random. Work out the probability that the sum is odd. So they add up to an odd number. So how would we get an odd number? If we had an even plus an even, that would be even. Or an odd plus an odd is also even. So this means we need one even, either even odd or odd even, which would give us an odd number. So we could draw a probability tree here if we wanted. So we'll have the first pick and the second pick. So it's odd, even, odd, even, odd, even. So the chance of getting a odd the first time, there are 5 odd out of 9 in total. The chance of getting even is 4 out of 9. Then if we took an odd out, what's the probability of getting an odd now? there are now 4 odds out of 8 and 4 evens out of 8. If we took an even out, what's the probability of getting an odd? 5 out of 8, an even 3 out of 8. So what is the probability of getting even then odd? So even then odd, when we go across the branches, we times. So 4 ninths times 5 eighths. 4 ninths times 5 eighths, or odd even, is 5 ninths times 4 eighths. They're both the same. They're both 20 out of 72. So the chance of getting an odd number is 20 out of 72 plus 20 out of 72, which is 40 out of 72. We don't have to simplify our answers. If we gave the answer simplified, that's absolutely fine, but we don't have to. Question 17. Using the iteration formula, xn plus 1 equals the square root of 6xn, take away 1, with x0 equal to 5, find x1, x2, x3. So this notation, the xn plus 1 and xn, means we find the next answer by substituting in the previous one. So we're starting with 5. That's what we're substituting in first. So to find the first one, x1, it's the square root of 6 times 5, take away 1. So we're substituting in 5 first, and that gets out our first answer. I'm going to press 5 and then equals. So 5 is now the A and S button, and the square root of 6 times my answer, which is 5, take away 1. Press equals, square root 29, that's x1. And then, to get my next answer, it's the square root of 6 times square root 29, take away 1. So we're substituting in the previous answer to get the next answer. And because I've got the A and S button already there, it will now take the square root 29 if I press equals again. 5.5956 and so on. 5.5956 and so on. And to get x3, I want to substitute this in now. So it's 6 times the 5.5956. Take away 1, the square root of 6 times my previous answer. Take away 1. And again, the calculator will just take the answer. I've got 5.7073. 5.7073. And they are my answers. Explain the relationship between the values of x1, x2, x3 and the equation x squared minus 6x plus 1 equals 0. So this iteration formula has come from this equation. So if we add 6x to both sides and take 1 away from both sides and then square root, you can see how the iteration formula has been made. So we've got x is equal to the square root of 6x minus 1. So that's how the iteration formula is made. It's made from rearranging an equation, and each answer, each value, is an estimate for the solution or a solution to the equation. So when you've got an iteration formula, the idea is every answer, if it's working, gets closer and closer to the actual solution. And if we keep going, eventually the calculator will stop changing, and that will be the solution. So the solution to, or a solution to x squared minus 6x plus 1 equals 0, a solution to it is 5.828 and so on. Question 18. The graph below shows the speed of a car in meters per second, t seconds after it starts moving. Calculate an estimate for the gradient of the graph when t equals 7. So when we've got a curve and we're finding the gradient, we need to draw a tangent. So a tangent at t equals 7. So it looks something like this, a tangent at t equals 7. And then we're going to, once you've drawn the tangent, you work out the gradient of the tangent. So ideally you'd find two nice points. So 7, 10 looks like a nice point. Then it looks like we've got 8, 12.5. We could use that one, or we could use one further up. Maybe 10, 18. Let's go with 10, 18. And then we find the gradient, so the change in y divided by the change in x. So the gradient of a straight line, the change in y over the change in x. So it's the y has gone up by 8, the x has gone up by 3. 8 over 3 is, use the calculator, but it's 2.6 recurring. 2 2/3. Describe what the gradient in part A represents. So on a speed time graph, the gradient is the acceleration. So on a speed time graph, the gradient is the acceleration, and the distance under the area under the graph is the distance. So the area under is the distance, and the gradient is the acceleration. Question 19. Show that 2x over x minus 3 minus 3x minus 1 over x plus 3 plus 1 can be written in the form ax plus b over x squared minus 9, where a and b are integers, whole numbers. So we're adding fractions here. To add fractions, we're going to make the denominators the same. So I'm going to times top and bottom of the first fraction by x plus 3. So the denominator will be x plus 3 times x minus 3, which is the difference of two squares. If we expand and simplify, we get x squared minus 9. For the second fraction, I'm timesing top and bottom by x minus 3. And for the 1 on the end, I'm going to have x plus 3 times x minus 3 over x plus 3 times x minus 3. So I'm timesing top and bottom by x plus 3 and timesing top and bottom by x minus 3. So now all the denominators are the same. I can make it into one fraction. And I could expand the brackets. I'll try and do it in the same line just to save space. So we've got 2x squared plus 6x. I'm going to keep the bracket here because I know I'm taking away this whole fraction, not just the first term. So I'm going to keep the bracket. 3x times x, 3x squared. 3x times negative 3, negative 9x. Negative 1 times x is negative x. Negative 1 times negative 3 is plus 3. And then I've got x squared minus 9 on the end. I'm going to get rid of this bracket now. So I'm taking away every term in it, which has the effect of changing the sign of every term. So I'm taking away 3x. I'm taking away negative 9x, which means plus 9x. You can think of this as expanding the bracket with a negative 1 on the outside. So I've got 2x squared plus 6x minus 3x squared plus 9x plus x. Take away 3 plus x squared minus 9 all over x squared minus 9. So then just collect the like terms. So x squared, I've got 2x squared minus 3x squared. That should be plus, I don't know why I've got a minus. plus x squared. So 2x squared minus 3x squared plus x squared is nothing. I don't want any x squareds, so I shouldn't have any x squareds. I've got 6x plus 9x plus another x. So that'll be 16x. And I've got -3, take away 9, -12. So that is my answer. Question 20. Here is a shape formed from two triangles, ABC and CDE. ACD and BCE are straight lines. And we're giving some measurements, but they're all drawn on the diagram. And angle BAC, again, is on the diagram. Work out the length of DE. That's this one. Give your answer correct to 3 significant figures. So we're going to have to work out this angle here, which will be equal to this angle here because they're opposite angles. And then once we've got this angle, we can use the cosine rule in the second triangle to find x. But we're going to be starting with the triangle on the left, and we will use the sine rule. Let's call this one y. So the sine rule first, we'll find this angle. We'll find the green one because angles in a triangle add up to 180, and then we'll use that in the second triangle. So the sine rule, I want my angles on top because I'm finding an angle. So sine y over its opposite, 12, is equal to sine 78 over its opposite, 15, times by 12 to get sine y by itself. So sine y is equal to sine 78 over 15 times 12, which is 0.7825, and so on. So to find y, I'm going to shift sign. So to get, whenever we're finding an angle, we're using shift sign or shift cos or shift tan. And we're getting 51.5 degrees. And remember, we're using the whole number in the calculator. I'm keeping this number here. If you want to, you can press store and save it, so it's available in your calculator as that letter. We can then find the green angle, 180, take away 78, take away our answer. So 180, take away answer, take away 78, 50.5. So 50.5 is the green angle. And then we're using the cosine rule. So the cosine rule, a squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cos a. So this time that's x squared equals 10 squared plus 16 squared. So this is big A. The angle we're using is big A. One opposite it is little a. And these two are B and C in any order. You can do C and B, B and C. It works out the same. Minus 2 times 10 times 16 cos 50.5. But again, that number's in the calculator, so I'm going to use the whole exact number. I'm now going to type all of this in the calculator. It's easier to type it in one go. If you type it in steps, it's easier to make a mistake. So just type it in one go. 10 squared plus 16 squared minus 2 times 10 times 16 cos answer. So I've got 152.49. That's x squared. So to get x, just square root the answer, and we get 12.3. So x is 12.3, and that is to three significant figures. So that is our answer. Question 21. Solve algebraically the simultaneous equations. We've got squares in the top one. I'm not sure exactly what shape that is. It's kind of like a circle, some oval. But to solve it, we can't use elimination. We have to use substitution. So I'm going to rearrange my bottom equation, my linear one, to make it either x equals or y equals. Either one. It really doesn't matter. So let's make it x equals, so plus 2y to both sides. I then divide by 3. So we've got x equals here. Now I can substitute 2y plus 8 over 3 in for x in my top equation. So I can get rid of the x by substituting in 2y plus 8 over 3. So we have 2y plus 8 over 3 squared plus 2y squared equals 10. I need to expand this. So it's 2y plus 8 times 2y plus 8 over 3 times 3. So it's just like multiplying a fraction. We times the top times the bottom. So 2y plus 8 times 2y plus 8 over 3 times 3, which is 9. We're going to have to expand those brackets. We could get rid of divide by 9 now by timesing every term by 9. It might be easier. So I'm going to keep the brackets just for one step more. So I'm timesing this by 9. I times this term by 9. 2y squared times 9 is 18. Y squared. And 10 nines are 90. Whenever we multiply by a number in an equation, we have to multiply every term by it. So now expand the brackets. We've got 4y squared plus 16y plus 16y plus 64. And we've got a quadratic. We need to make it equal to 0 to solve it. We've got 22y squareds. We've got 32y's. And we've got 64 minus 90, which is minus 26. We can half each term, but we can't simplify it any more than that. So it looks like we're going to be using the quadratic formula. So we can say A is 11, B is 16, C is negative 13, and the quadratic formula says x equals minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So we're just substituting in a, b, and c. So x is minus 16 plus or minus the square root of 16 squared minus 4 times 11 times negative 13 all over 2 11s. So this is just going to get typed into the calculator. I'm pressing the fraction button first. I'm going to keep all the numbers in brackets. It's less likely you'll make a mistake with negatives and things if we are keeping the numbers in brackets. Minus 4 times 11 times negative 13 all over 2 11s. So this is the plus. And negative 8 plus 3 root 23 all over 11. I'll do three significant figures, 0.581. So x is 0.581. And I'll store that as A. And then hopefully I can go back in. Where is it? Back in to my quadratic formula. and change the plus to a minus. Otherwise, I would have had to type it out all over again. And I get negative 2.04. Negative 2.04. And again, I'm going to store that one as B. So I've got my 2x answers. And I know that x is equal to 2y plus 8 over 3. So I just need to do 2a plus 8 over 3, 3.05. And 2b plus 8 over 3, 1.31. So when we give our answer, we have to give these as pairs. So it's these two together and these two together. So x is 0.581 and y is 3.05, or x is negative 2.04 and y is 1.31. Question 22. A solid cube has a length of 4.8 centimeters, correct to 1 decimal place. A cube has mass, the cube has mass of 220 grams to 2 significant figures. Work out the upper bound for the density. So it's a bounds question. And we're working at density. So density is the mass over the volume. We want the upper bound for density. So the upper bound for density, we're going to want the upper mass, but we're going to want to divide. To get the biggest possible answer, we want to divide by something smaller. So the lower bound for the volume. So upper bound for mass divided by lower bound for volume. So the volume, we know the length is 4.8 to 1 decimal place. We want the lower length. So if it's 4.8, the one up is 4.9, the one down is 4.7. We want to go halfway, 4.75. So the lower bound for length is 4.75. So the lower bound for volume is 4.75 cubed, because the volume of a cube is going to be the length cubed. 4.75 cubed, that's squared, cubed is 107.17, and so on. And the mass, 220, we want the upper bound. The next one's 230. So the upper bound is 225. So it's going to be 225 divided by 107.17, 225 over answer, and we get 2 decimal places, so 2.10. 2.10 grams per centimeter cubed. Question 23. The diagram shows quadrilateral OABC. We've got ADB and ODC are straight lines. O to A is 5A, O to B is 6B, A to C is 2A plus 3B. That's all on the diagram. Using a vector method, find the ratio A to D to D to B. We want to know how much of the journey A to B, A to D is really. So what fraction of A to B is A to D? So let's work out A to D. How can we get from A to D? We can go, it's a fraction of A to B. So A to B to get from A to B, we're going to go minus 5A plus 6B. And we're going to say A to D is some fraction of that journey. That's what we want to work out. What fraction is it? So A to D is some fraction, let's call it X, of A to B. So if we work out X, then we can write it as a ratio. How else can we get from A to D? So we really want two ways of doing it. And we can say, if we go from, so instead of going straight down there, we can go down there and up there. We can take a long route. But either way, we can make those two equal to each other. So O to C, if we work out O to C, which is 5A plus 2A plus 3B. So 7A plus 3B. We can say O to D is some fraction of that. Let's call that fraction Y. That's O to D, some fraction of O to C. And then A to D would be minus 5A, and then O to D. So A to D is minus 5A plus O to D. So now we have two different ways of getting from A to D. One's got our fraction that we want, our X, and the other's got a different fraction, which is how far D is as a fraction of O to C. We don't really care about Y, but we can use it to get our answer. So these two are both A to D, so they must be equal. They must be equal to each other because they're both A to D. So X times minus 5A plus 6B must be equal to minus 5A plus Y times 7A plus 3B. And let's expand these brackets. So minus 5XA plus 6XB equals minus 5A plus 7YA plus 3YB. So it looks complicated, but we've got these A's and B's in it. So for them to be equal, the A's must equal the A's and the B's must equal the B's. So we can actually split this off into two separate equations. So we've got A parts here and we've got B parts. We've got A parts and B parts. So they can become two separate equations. So for A's, I've got minus 5XA equals minus 5A plus 7YA. And for the B's, I've got 6XB equals 3YB. Now, in these A equations and B equations, it's all in terms of A and B, so we don't need to write them. You can think of it as dividing through by them. They're not necessary. They're on both sides. They must be, 6x must equal 3y if 6xb equals 3yb. So 6x is equal to 3y. If we divide both sides by 3, we can get y is equal to 2x. And y equals 2x, we can substitute into our other equation to get rid of the y. We didn't want to work out the y, we were only interested in the x. So we've got minus 5x equals minus 5 plus 7y. If I change y into 2x, 7 times 2x is 14x. And then I'm just solving this equation to find x, plus 5 to both sides, plus 5x to both sides, divide by 19, x is 5/19. X is 5/19. So this part of the journey is 5/19 of the total journey. So if this is 5/19, The rest of it must be 14/19 because it has to add up to a whole. So what's the ratio? I could write 5/19 to 14/19, or even nicer, it's 5 to 14.